All right, let's dive into some really fascinating stuff about motivation today. We're going to be pulling some amazing insights from Rob Dial's interview on the Jay Shetty podcast. Get ready, because Dial he's really straightforward. He goes deep into like the whole psychology of reaching your goals and conquering those things that trip us up, things like fear and procrastination. And we're going to explore how to tap into what truly drives us.
Yeah, it is really fascinating how Dial goes way beyond, just setting surface level goals. He really digs into like what makes us tick.
For sure, and right off the bat, he throws out this wild thought experiment. He asks, imagine if everyone you love would die if you didn't achieve your goal this year. It's pretty intense.
It does make you think, though.
It really does. It's a powerful way to show just how important having a strong why is. That really deep, unshakable reason for why you're going after something.
Right. And Dial is convinced that having that kind of internal drive is what truly changes things. It's not just about motivation that fades away.
He actually tells this story about a client who came to him wanting to make $100,000. Seems pretty straightforward, but Dial kept asking why.
I bet.
It took 7 whys to get to the bottom of it. Turns out the client's real motivation was to protect his children from the violence in their neighborhood.
Wow, so it wasn't really about the money itself.
Exactly. We went much deeper than that. It was about safety and security.
That's so insightful, the way Dial gets to the heart of what really drives us. Peeling back those layers like an onion.
It makes you wonder, what would your why reveal if you kept asking yourself that?
Yeah, what's that real driving force behind the things you're going after?
Totally. And once you've figured out that why, you're ready to face the next big thing, fear. Dial breaks fear down into 2 types, primal and intellectual.
Okay, so primal fears are kind of like hardwired in us, like running from a tiger.
Right, essential for survival.
Exactly.
But intellectual fears are different. What are some examples of intellectual fears?
Well, let's say you're about to give a presentation. Your heart starts racing, palms get sweaty.
The classic fear response.
Yeah, but the fear isn't actually because of a real physical threat. It's the thought of being judged or failing. Those are intellectual fears.
So they're fears of what might happen, not what's actually happening right now.
Exactly.
And I love how Dial deals with fear. He says if we can think up the worst possible thing, we can also imagine the best possible thing. It's about shifting that focus, right?
Yeah, from what we don't want to what we do want.
He also talked about getting over his own fear of judging others. He decided to find 3 positive things about people he initially judged negatively.
Interesting.
And over time, his gut reaction changed from judgment to acceptance.
Such a simple idea, but powerful.
Instead of trying to ignore the fear, he shifted his perspective.
And that's something we can all learn from. First, you got to admit the fear's there. Then, find ways to calm your nerves. Deep breaths, focusing on your heartbeat. If you do these things consistently, you can actually rewire your brain.
To move past those fear responses.
Exactly.
So we've got our why down, and we're tackling our fears. What's next?
Well, then there's that monster.
Procrastination.
Yeah, Dial has a really interesting perspective on it. He believes that we often put things off because our why isn't strong enough. When your reason for doing something is weak, it's hard to get motivated.
Right.
He actually doesn't like the word motivation at all. He says it's fleeting. He prefers to talk about being driven, that sense of purpose that pushes you forward.
And his story totally shows this. He left a secure job in sales to go into podcasting coaching. A lot of people would call that a huge risk.
For sure.
But for Dial, the fear of not going after his passion was bigger than anything else.
That's so powerful.
And then there's this story he tells about finding a letter from his dad. His dad had passed away.
Oh, wow.
The letter basically urged Dial to live with courage, love, and laughter.
What a sign.
It was like the final push he needed.
Sometimes those little nudges from the universe are just what we need.
To take that leap of faith.
Definitely. But then Dial's story takes another turn. He had what many would consider success, a great career, a platform to share his message. But he realized that those outward achievements weren't enough.
It's like he climbed that mountain of success and then realized something was still missing.
Exactly.
That search for lasting fulfillment.
Yeah, that's where it gets really interesting.
We'll dive into that part of his story right after this. So Dial's got this successful career, a platform to share his message, but something's missing. He was looking for that real, lasting fulfillment.
It's like a lot of us realize at some point that just being successful on the outside, it doesn't automatically mean you're happy or at peace inside.
Yeah.
And Dial starts to really explore that.
What led him down this path of spiritual exploration?
Well, he starts prioritizing being still. Finding time for quiet reflection.
Okay.
Dial believes that God, or the universe or whatever higher power you connect with, it speaks to us in those quiet moments.
So it's about tuning out all the noise,
Exactly, and tapping into a deeper source of wisdom.
which is definitely easier said than done.
Oh, for sure, in this crazy, always connected world.
Yeah, but I guess even just a few minutes can make a difference.
Absolutely. Even 5 minutes of meditation or a walk in nature without your phone can make a huge difference.
So Dial's saying we need to create space for that connection, even when life's chaotic.
Yeah, it's about making that interconnection a priority.
And that also means dealing with our emotions.
Exactly. Dial talks about how we often try to just bury those uncomfortable emotions, pretend they're not there.
Right. Push them down.
But he uses this really cool analogy. You know those videos of polar bears and impalas?
I think so.
Well, after something stressful happens, they shake and convulse. It's like they're physically releasing the trauma from their bodies.
Like they know instinctively they have to process those emotions, not hold on to them.
Exactly. And Dial says we humans need to do the same thing.
So holding on to those unprocessed emotions.
Yeah, it can create all sorts of tension in our lives. Physically, mentally, even spiritually.
It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater.
It's going to keep popping back up.
Usually in ways we don't want.
So what's the answer? How do we get better at processing those tough emotions?
That's the big question.
Well, Dial believes in finding healthy ways to release them. Journaling, being creative, exercise, talking to a therapist, anything that helps you move through those feelings instead of keeping them bottled up.
It's not about being perfect.
No, it's about just being present with whatever comes up.
This all goes back to that idea of duality that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Dial keeps coming back to how our lives are both significant and insignificant at the same time.
Yeah, it's a really powerful concept.
Right, like we're each unique individuals. We can make a difference in the world.
But we're also just a tiny part of something much bigger than ourselves.
Part of this huge, interconnected universe.
Exactly. It's like holding both of those truths at once.
The grandness and the smallness of our existence.
And that can be incredibly freeing.
You're right.
It lets us strive for greatness, but also accept that everything is temporary.
It's about finding that balance.
Yeah, taking ourselves seriously enough to make our lives matter, but not so seriously that we get bogged down by ego.
Dial had this great quote about responsibility.
Yeah.
He said, "Everything is your fault."
Whoa, that sounds kind of harsh.
I know, but he's not talking about blame or shame.
Okay.
He's encouraging us to step up and be the CEO of our own lives.
I like that.
To realize we have the power to choose how we respond.
To create the reality we want.
Exactly. It's about shifting from that victim mentality to a creator mentality.
So instead of feeling powerless when things get tough, we can see it as a chance to grow.
Yeah, as an opportunity to learn.
Exactly. It's about building resilience, that ability to bounce back from tough times.
Even stronger than before.
Exactly.
Dial also talks about how important it is to ask for help when we need it. He's not afraid to admit he doesn't have all the answers.
It's refreshing, right?
Yeah, he actually encourages us to let go of that need to do everything ourselves.
To realize that asking for help is actually a strength, and to remember that support can come from anywhere. Like that story he told about his dad's letter. It gave him the courage to follow his dreams.
It's a reminder that love and guidance can show up in the most unexpected ways.
So true.
Well, this has been a really insightful deep dive into Rob Dial's ideas about motivation and finding your why.
He offers such practical advice.
Let's take a quick break and then we'll wrap up with some key takeaways. And a final thought to ponder. Dial's journey really shows you that outward success doesn't always mean you're fulfilled inside.
Right, like he had to go through that whole intense thing of pushing for success to realize that true peace comes from within.
Yeah.
It's like he had to climb to the top of that mountain to really see how beautiful the valley was.
And what's inspiring is that he didn't just stop there.
No, he kept going, exploring new ways to grow and evolve.
And he's really open about how that growth often comes from facing those tough challenges, even what we might see as failures.
Yeah, he actually thinks those tough times are some of our best teachers. It's all about shifting your perspective.
Seeing the lesson in those struggles.
Exactly.
So instead of getting caught up in blaming yourself or giving up, we can choose to see those setbacks as opportunities.
Right, chances to learn and grow.
Dial also talks about how important it is to get support when you need it. He admits he doesn't have all the answers.
He's not afraid to say, I don't know.
Which is so refreshing.
It's like he's encouraging us to let go of that need to do everything on our own.
I mean, realize that asking for help is actually a sign of strength.
Not weakness.
And sometimes that support comes from the most unexpected places. Remember that story he told about finding his dad's letter? It gave him the courage to chase his dreams.
Yeah, it reminds us that love and guidance can show up in the most surprising ways.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Rob Dial's insights on motivation and finding your why.
I want to leave you with this question. Dial believes that we chose these lives, these challenges, these experiences for a reason.
Okay.
What if our souls picked these journeys for us? What lessons did we want to learn? And how are we doing on that path?
It's a really powerful question. It makes you look inward and connect with what you truly want.
Yeah.
And it reminds us that this journey of self-discovery never really ends. So keep exploring, keep questioning, keep diving deeper into yourself. That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us. And